I think I've got it. All right. So if you're here, that's great. If you want to go over on YouTube, that's also great. But I just want to jump on, like I said, answer questions that anyone might have around narcissistic personality disorder, what the disorder actually is, what it isn't, my experiences with it, all of that before I head out for the weekend. And hopefully go see the eclipse. We'll see. It looks like it's gonna be clouds everywhere. So my husband and I are going to be traveling to try to go see it. So we are looking very closely at the weather, and we're going to be heading out very early in the morning to go check that out. But a couple of things that I want to talk about with narcissistic personality disorder is what it is and what it isn't. Narcissistic personality disorder is actually a, you live with one curly top. Narcissistic personality disorder is actually a disorder. And the reason I say that is because when I first started getting exposed to narcissistic personality disorder, I think the time that anyone hears that word narcissist is sort of like as an insult to someone else. Like, oh my gosh, you're such a narcissist. And generally, it's sort of considered in pop culture like, oh, you're a jerk, you're self centered, those kinds of things. It's not really about the true disorder, which is a very manipulative behaviors, I guess really is the way to say that, that someone is doing. And so learning that in the context of me actually having been in that narcissistic relationship at the time that I was in it, for me, that was an epiphany. It was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I can see really clearly what is happening in this relationship. And now that I can put my finger on it and identify it and I can speak about it, and I understand now what gaslighting is, and I understand what devaluing is, and I understand, reactive abuse, and I understand the trauma bond, and I understand the isolation tactics and the controlling tactics and all these things, became really, really clear to me not only that I was being abused, but that it was something that I needed to get out of. So I think that's really important to understand. I do not at all fall into the category of, oh, this person's a jerk, so they're a narcissist. And I do not think that all jerks are narcissists. I think that there are plenty of people that have narcissistic traits that don't have the personality disorder. The disorder is when it's actually very disruptive to your life and is actually actively, constantly, all the time affecting your personal relationships, your work relationships. You really have an inability to sort of stabilize yourself and change the way in which you're thinking. There are plenty of people on this spectrum, it's a very big spectrum, that could just have the traits and don't have the personality disorder. Either way, it's important to understand, well, what are those traits that are very toxic? Be able to identify them and be able to decide for yourself, is this the kind of relationship that I want to be able to stay in? So I keep looking over here because I'm trying to make sure that my YouTube live is going as well. Hi, YouTubers over there. I'm also live on my TikTok channel. I'm trying to do two things at once, but just trying to answer questions around narcissistic abuse, narcissistic personality disorder, and my experiences with it. So but let me see. I saw a couple of things come into the chat, so let me see if I can look through a couple of these. So someone said Delaware. Does that mean you're going to go and look at the eclipse in Delaware? Gotta make sure this is. I've got a new tripod. Not a new. I have it is a new tripod, but I never had one before because I don't do this. I do this as very much like just in my spare time. But yes, I am also going to go and try to see the eclipse tomorrow. I did see the total solar eclipse in 2017 fell on my birthday, which was a super awesome birthday present. And so I did actually see it in totality. If you have the opportunity to see totality, not 10 centimeters outside of totality, no good. In totality, that's where you want to be. Really amazing experience. Is it serenity? I'm not sure what you mean by how much does it get confused with trauma. Like narcissism, how much does that get confused with trauma? Generally, whenever someone is a narcissist, they probably have been raised through trauma in some way. They either had narcissistic parents themselves or had some sort of very traumatic experience in their formative years is probably the best way to say that. It's usually something that forms and solidifies in childhood and adolescence. And just because someone has trauma in their past does not mean that you have to be a martyr now for them in their future. But yeah, certainly they probably have dealt with trauma. You're likely trauma bonding with them, trying to learn and understand why is it that they are the way that they are. You're trying to ease that. They're also hurting you while also healing you. So that's that trauma bond that gets formed. There's a lot of really unhealthy dynamics around trauma when it comes to a narcissist. Sorry, looking through these. And YouTubers, I'm trying to figure out over here as well how to look at, oh, I can look at the live chat there, I think. It's not letting me. Just make sure you're putting your questions in the chat. I'll try to look at all the questions for both channels. Why can't you, EKV Customs, why can't you bring yourself to get in the car and go? The trauma bond, probably. There's a lot of really good things that happen with narcissists. That's not exactly the right sentence that I'm trying to say. You're probably having positive experiences along with a ton of negative experiences. If it was all bad all the time, be like, no problem, get in my car, I am out of here. But when we have spent so much of our time and our energy invested in somebody trying to make a relationship work, plus they're also hurting us, and then they're also the healer of that hurt, and so our nervous system sort of relies on them for that love and comfort, even though it's not exactly love and comfort. It's definitely something that is skewed. These are all things that make it really hard. They're likely also telling you things that are making you feel like you're really confused on whether or not you're the problem. They love to try to paint their victims as the problem in narcissistic relationships. So there's a lot of things that can make it really difficult to leave a narcissist. But I think one thing that's important to know, there was a phrase that a therapist said to me one time that's really stayed with me for a really long time, where she said, you cannot start healing from trauma until you stop re-traumatizing yourself on a daily basis. So even though there's a lot of things that make you feel like you need to stay there, you also have to take your own health and well-being into account and know that you can't start healing from all the abuse that you've endured until you leave. When I was with my narcissistic ex, who I was with for 6.5 years, I remember thinking to myself, like, I need to get out. Eventually, I'm going to get out. Eventually, I'm going to prioritize that. Eventually. Like, I kept like putting it off. And then I kept getting deeper and deeper into the relationship. We ended up getting engaged. We got a house. And I was like, I really cannot marry him. Like, I cannot marry him. I need to leave. And I just kept having those thoughts of, I just can't. And I kept thinking to myself, whenever I do prioritize this and do actually get some of my self-esteem back and I get enough strength back in order to leave this narcissistic abuser, when I do that, everything will just sort of like pop back into place. Everything will be normal again. Like, I'll just move on from here. And I was really shocked at how difficult it is to recuperate yourself from these kinds of relationships, because it is truly abuse. It's abuse to your nervous system and your mind, so you don't see it on the skin. And that is actually incredibly difficult to heal from, moving out of that, because you have to allow your brain and your nervous system time to process all the abuse that happened to you. That's why a lot of people, when they leave narcissistic relationships, they just ruminate on them for a really long period of time, because it's like, I'm just trying to make sense out of it. And if I could just process it and make sense out of it, then I can heal from it. And there's certainly a lot of truth there. EMDR treatments can be really helpful to expedite that process, but there are lots of reasons why you might be struggling to be able to leave. Hi, YouTubers. I'm also trying to keep an eye on your chat. If you all have questions around narcissistic personality disorder or my experiences with it, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will make sure to answer those questions also. Munchkin, yeah, healing takes a year. You're still healing. I would say solidly for me, it took me, it was about a year to about a year and a half before I felt like stabilized. And it's hard to explain like what exactly I mean by that. I just sort of didn't really trust myself to make decisions for a really long time. I didn't even know what made me happy. So I experimented with lots of different hobbies in my spare time. Like, what do I want to do with myself in my spare time? Like, what actually makes me happy? Because I have spent 6.5 years only doing things that make someone else happy, only listening to the music that they want to listen to, only going to the places that they want to go to, only doing the activities that they wanted to do. And so I just sort of, it was a very flailing, but also very healing journey that I went through for about a year, year and a half, where I just sort of tried lots of different things. And I probably looked fairly spastic to the outside world, but eventually you'll stabilize. You'll find your equilibrium again, but it takes a while, and you have to have a diligent effort at it, but you also have to give yourself grace as well because you're healing. Amanda, yeah, it does feel impossible sometimes. It does. It does feel impossible sometimes. Please, please, please don't lose hope. Narcissistic abuse can haunt you for years after you leave it. Um, and it is so important to find a licensed professional if you can that can help you on that journey. I do have links on my bio for very really like low cost and free options for therapy. I'm not affiliated with them, and I'm not a therapist myself, so I'm not the right person. But I do have those out there for because I know that therapy can be really expensive. I also have like links to virtual EMDR treatments and things like that. Those kinds of things can help you to learn that you can be happy by yourself as a whole person to be able to move on from these narcissistically abusive relationships. Priscilla, oh my God. I feel like no one I talk to understands this breakup because it isn't a normal one. 100%. 100%. I still feel this way a lot to this day because you'll tell somebody like, oh, I was in this abusive relationship, and they're like, oh, well, what happened? Then you explain to them, they're like, oh, well, they just sort of sounded like a jerk. And you're like, it's like, if you could amplify that statement by infinity, then you're getting close. And it's really frustrating. And then people will say things, they'll try to empathize, and people are very kind about it for the most part. But they'll say things like, oh, I did it a total jerk one time too, or I did it a total narcissist one time too. And you're like, and I'm sorry if you did, but just the way in which you're responding to that makes me believe, no, you don't really understand. It is really, really, really deeply abusive. It really hurts you at a super deep level, and it takes years and years and years to recover from. I'm almost 10 years out of my narcissistically abusive relationship, and I'm still in therapy about it. I'm able to talk about it now, and I have definitely moved on, and I'm married, and I have a great husband and all of that. But it's certainly something that stays with you where you're constantly processing for potentially the rest of your life. How did I even end up in something like that? What actually happened when I was in it? How can I heal myself? How can I, move on? How can I process these things that happened? So I get it. It takes a long time, and not a lot of people really understand unless they've really truly been through it. Looking through these, and if you all have comments over here on YouTube as well, just put them in the chat, and I'll try to grab as many questions as I can. I'm not going to stay on too long because I need to pack so I can go see the eclipse. Oh, Chad, you have to deal with your disruptive narcissistic brother while you handle your folks' affairs. This is my biggest fear that you're hitting on right now, Chad. I have a narcissistic older brother. I'm one of seven also. And I dread the day that I have to go through our parents passing. I'm sure that obviously it's going to happen one day. Hopefully it happens before me. But who knows, right? When all of our time is over. But yeah, that is something that I'm super, super, super scared about myself. I would say the most important things about getting re-exposed to a narcissist is do the best you can to protect yourself. And it's going to be really hard in close quarters with someone like that. But as much as you can gray rock them, and do not give them the reactions that they're going to be after. The biggest thing that narcissists like to do is to prove to themselves that they still have some sort of control over you. And they will try to do things to elicit an emotional response out of you. If they're a covert narcissist, it'll be on the sly, like it'll be something really catty, like, if you're dealing with the passing of your parents, like, oh, I took this heirloom or something that was of our parents. And you're gonna be like, why? That was something that was a gift that I gave to them, or it would be something like that, where it's like clearly like directed at you, and so it'll hurt you. And then they'll be like, what? Why do you have a problem with that? I don't understand. Gray rock them as much as possible. They will try to hurt you as much as possible. And that sucks to have to go through the hurt of the loss of a parent while also dealing with a sibling that's also actively going to try to hurt you. Try to pull people in around you as best you can that love you. Hopefully you have a support system in place, whether it's friends or a spouse or someone that you're involved with. Those kinds of things can help. And one of the things that I did when I was on the flip side of someone dying, when I was getting married, and at the time I thought my narcissistic mother was going to be coming. If y'all watch my videos, you know how and why that didn't happen. But I told several of my friends, I was like, you are responsible for making sure my mom doesn't cause a scene, that she doesn't come up and make me cry during the wedding, like keep her away from me. Like they had like assigned duties of like, if this happens, make sure that this happens. If that, keep her away from flirting with the bartenders and things like that. Have people in place for you to be your army to protect you. You shouldn't have to go into situations like that by yourself. Do the best you can to gray rock them. Don't let them get the emotional rise out of you, at least in front of them while you can. You will probably be emotionally effective. Try to not give them the benefit of seeing you that way. Deal with your emotions in private with people that are safe, would be my advice on that. And I'm sorry you're going through that. Priscilla, you have children together. It's making your breakup really hard. I bet that is. Narcissists love to have children with people and then leave them, and then they'll use the children against you for at least the next 18 years, if not more, to further their abuse of you. You're just going to have to be really firm with them about timing, communication. They will try to break all kinds of communication barriers because of the kids and things like that. They will test your boundaries. They will show up late to pick up the kids. They will drop them off late. They will do all kinds of things. Do the best you can to document as much as you can. Be firm on the boundaries that you set in place. Like if we're meeting at 6:30 for exchanging the kids, and you're not here within 15 minutes, that is it. And try to have these things in writing with your court orders as well as you go through that. I cannot provide legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a therapist, but do the best you can to protect your children as much as possible, and protect yourself as much as possible, because that post-separation abuse is real, particularly when you have kids. And even though it will be very, 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 very real until they're 18, it's likely to be a lifelong thing as well at future family events, weddings of your children, high school graduations, college graduations, all that kind of stuff. I've had to deal with that as a child of a narcissist, and it's been really disruptive. I'm in my 40s now, and it's still disruptive. So, get through these, trying to grab as much as I can. I am having a good day today. It is a beautiful day here. It's kind of chilly. Like last weekend, I was like at the lake, enjoying like really, really sunny, beautiful weather, and today it's like freezing cold. And then hopefully it'll warm up over the weekend. I'm actually getting ready to go. I'm gonna rent an RV. I'm gonna do a little adventure. My husband and I are gonna drive into the zone of totality, somewhere. We have a campsite rented and all that. And it looks like it's gonna be very hot to where we're going, which is very weird because it's very cold where I'm at today. Not very cold. It's lovely, like it's sunny, but it's chilly. Oh, Chad, not a covert, emotional tantrums. I laugh just because like I'm immediately like thinking of my narcissistic brother. It is really tantrums, and they lack a sense of self, right? They're very emotionally immature. They're stuck in adolescence. So the word tantrums is correct, is why I'm laughing. Um, they are very much trying to get a response out of you, right? And if you just sort of like stand back and look at them, let them have their tantrum, let them look like how they actually look like to everyone that's around them, and then respond with as gray rock as you can with only facts. Be brief, be firm in what you're saying. Yeah, it's really, really hard. Amanda, yeah, reactive abuse. Yeah, so if you're unfamiliar with the term reactive abuse, it's when a narcissist is constantly coming at you. They're coming at you, they're taunting, they're having a tantrum, they're really, really, really trying very hard to manipulate you into having an emotional response. And then they say something and you snap and you lose your temper, or you're yelling and screaming at them, or you call them a bad name, or whatever it is. There's some sort of reaction. It's likely very uncharacteristic of who you actually are, but they've pushed you so far to that edge. And then they sit back and they sort of smirk like, duper's delight, like, ha ha ha, see, I got that response out of you. That's what they're trying to do. And that's called reactive abuse. I don't like that phrase, reactive abuse, because that is something that abusers, narcissistic abusers, point to, and they say, see, you're not perfect either. You're also really abusive. And then when you talk to your friends and your family about it, you're like, sounds like you're both really toxic. It takes two to tango. No. That's not what's happening. You're having a healthy response to someone actively abusing you. Oop. Good luck with that. Sorry, I do have to run. Someone's at my door. So I hope everybody has a great weekend.